Okay, so next we're going to add our main menu button, and that will be something that we can toggle back to our buttons after we click on a button, and that will go into content and hide the buttons. So we'll need a main menu button to go back to the buttons. So let's go to our library, and here's a main menu button, and we'll drag that onto our stage. And make sure when you drag that in, make sure you're in your buttons layer to make sure it goes to the right layer. And now we want to add some code to that. So let's go to our first layer, our first frame on the actions, and go into our actions. Actually, this might not quite work. I think I have to select it first because we're going to try snippets. Let me try this again. Let me select the button, the frame. Yeah, I guess maybe I won't mess with the frame. I'll just go into the button, go into the actions. I'm sorry. Yeah, actions. Let me see what happens here. Code snippets. Action script. Timeline navigation. And we want click to go to frame and stop. So I'm going to double click on that. And it says requires an instance name. All right, we'll go ahead and let it name it for us. Hit OK. And the code went right to exactly the right frame. So I guess I didn't have to worry about going to the first frame like I had been doing. So here it named button 7, and then we have our edit event listener, our function, and then it created our function for us, the mouse event, and it also said where to go to and stop. Now up in here in the instructions, it does say replace the 5 with whatever frame we want. And these up here, these are just comments, and you can see that if you add these a forward slash and an asterisk and end it with an asterisk forward slash, that you can get those comments. So if you delete it, you see it'll show up, but if you have these, that means it won't show up in your code. So let's on our go to and stop. We actually want it to go to frame 1, but 5 would work also, so it really doesn't matter, but let's just change that to 1. And I don't think there's really anything we can test yet because we don't have our content in here yet. I guess we can kind of see, we can maybe do a control test to see where we're at. So everything's still working. All right, let's go back to our timeline, and I'm going to add a new layer under my actions, and I want to call this one content. And I want to go to my 10th frame, and this is pretty important to get the frames right, because if we tell it to go to it, whatever you tell it to go to is where you need to have. So make sure you're always on the right frames. So we're going to do an insert keyframe, and we want our content. So let's go into our restaurant content, and we're going to go with our first one, Gabelle Lafelle, and we're going to drag it, and this is going to go on top of our buttons. Make sure you're in your content layer, and this shows up. I don't want it in frames 1 through 10 or 1 through 9. I want it in the second half right here. So that looks correct. So we've got our buttons here, and then our content here. And it does cover up the buttons. That's good. I'm going to try to center it a little bit in between here and the bottom. Okay, so now I have the content in here. Now let's go back and see if we can get this code to make it look like it's going to work. So if we click on our main, this is for our main menu button. Right, let's go ahead and just change that so we kind of know. Let's click on our main menu in the properties. It's called button 7. Let's just call it main menu underscore button. Go back into my code. That way you know that's the main menu button. And I could rename the function, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it. And so when I click on that, it will go to 1. Now, when I click on this button, though, I want it to go to frame 10, where that content is. So let me change that to 10. Let me click off of my actions. So what you see here, this is my frame 10. It could be any of these numbers, actually, but I'm going to leave it at 10 for now, and hopefully this will work. And let's do control test. And it didn't work. Oh, because I'm still on trace. That's why. I wanted to tell it to do, I wanted to tell it to go to and stop instead. Not a trace. That's why I just wrote it out. So I forgot to change that. It should be go, G-O-T-O. And then we'll do and it's capital A, N-D, and then capital S-T-O-P. So go to and stop. Frame 10. Now let's try. Let's see if that works. There it works. All right. Click our main menu. That will go to frame 1. And this button will go to frame 10. And so it's all working. So we have our first button working. So going good so far. Now let's see if we can go to our timeline. And I'll end this lesson right now.